they didn't really have a reference of hip hop and rap. But the other day, like I was at home visiting my parents, and I heard like 21 being played in my
Oh yeah.
kitchen. I was like, who's playing this music? And I walked downstairs, and my dad has a lot by 21 like blasting on his laptop while he's cooking. I'm like, damn, dad, what? So I was asking, and he's saying because he listens to my music sometimes in the recommended,
Other stuff will pop up. Yeah.
So he'll listen to hip hop now because he's curious of like he's still kind of building that sense of like what makes hip hop like what's the different types of hip hop, why
Yeah.
people like it, what makes it good. So he's kind of like delving into that now because of I guess my career path. But it's pretty fun.
I mean, that's dope. That's super dope to be like,
Yeah,
I'm introducing my dad to like 21 Savage and shit like that.
yeah. It was fun.
I do not miss. Hey, started from Cali and now I got bitches in Europe. They singing my shit. Remember, it's never the critic who counts. That's just the way that it.
What up, what up, what up, everybody? Welcome back to another one of my Convos. Today joining us another very special guest, rapper, artist, West. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate you for having me.
Yeah. All right, like I said, we got a special guest. Names has been buzzing, been putting out a lot of music, a lot of good music, and people seem to have been gravitating towards. So we definitely wanted to like sit down and talk to you about everything you got going on.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I mean, from the start, for people that maybe not that familiar with you, we always like kind of start from the beginning, like kind of touch on your background. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And like, how'd you first kind of start getting into music?
Yeah, so I was born in New York. I can't really claim it because I moved over to the Bay Area when I was like 3 years old. So I was born in New York, raised in the Bay Area. Um, Grew up there. When it came time to go to college, moved down to LA, went to school in LA. Was on like a little bit of a different path at first, in something a little bit more realistic. After I ended up working for, a year or so, I just really hated it. And yeah, so ended up, I mean, I've been doing music my whole life. I've been playing instruments, guitar, piano, singing since I was a kid. So it's always been my biggest passion, just never really thought like it was super realistic. So I guess
Yeah.
it took me kind of getting to where I thought other people wanted me to get to for me to realize that it didn't fulfill me a whole lot. So I ended up just saying, fuck it, I'm going to quit and just go for what I really want. So that was maybe about 3 years ago, and here we are. So.
Okay. And I guess when you made that decision to like, all right, I'm done with this, I'm gonna hop into music, like kind of what was like, I guess family and friends like response to that?
I mean, the only responses that I cared about were like a few of my close like homies that I really consider my brothers and my family. And like my family is without a doubt, like they're always super supportive. Like, of course, in the beginning they were worried. You got a son, just graduated school, had a good job, a stable, I come from an immigrant household, so
Yeah.
a stable income. And then you're like, oh, mom and dad, I'm gonna go be a rapper or a singer. They're just a little like thrown off a little bit. So the worry was there, of course, the concern was there. As any good parent should be concerned. I would be a little bit weirded out if they were like, yeah, just,
Yeah, just go for it.
I would, if I had kids, I'd be concerned as well, but they were always supportive. So I think me and my parents have a very trusting relationship. So it was never that they just trusted that I had my head screwed on straight. And I kind of told them, within 2 years, this is my business plan. This is what you should expect to see within this amount of time. Here, I, showed them some of the music and stuff. So they were concerned but supportive. Now, obviously, they're my biggest fans in the world, my biggest supporters. My closest friends when I first started, they were actually the ones that kind of like gave me an intervention for me to start the music.
Yeah.
'Cause I had been recording and making music my whole life and really just showing them. And so every time they would hear my songs, they would be like, why don't you do this? It's really good. So eventually they were the ones that kind of got that ball rolling. Everyone else, I'm sure people, maybe made fun of it or
Yeah.
didn't know what was going on, but I didn't care because those people don't really matter if they're not close to me.
So I mean, can I ask like what were you like studying before, and like what was your career path before you like hopped into music
Oh
full
yeah,
time?
Yeah, I was in the consulting industry. I studied business economics.
Okay.
And so business econ in college, and then I was in management consulting. So
Okay.
very different from what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess like coming up, like who were like some of your biggest influences, like musically, that made you want to like do this full time?
Um, well, people that I looked up to as a kid, like I love Mob Deep. I love grew up on like
Underrated for sure.
for sure. Mob Deep. Obviously, I grew up in like the prime of 50 Cent, Eminem, Lil Wayne. When I was in high school,
Yeah.
Lil Wayne, like,
Early 2000s.
yeah, it seemed like there was no one could ever be bigger than Wayne at that time. But I think most formatively, like for me, if you're just saying pure utility or pure like happiness of who I enjoyed the most, for sure, like John Mayer,
Okay.
because I rap, but I also like vocally. I think singing and melody is probably my biggest passion within music, and then Drake, for sure. Just his versatility, his longevity. I love Drake. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, you said you were like came from an immigrant family, so like kind of what's your heritage?
I'm Chinese.
Okay.
My family immigrated from China. They used to live in Beijing and went to New York where I was born.
And I guess like I don't know how many like how big rap was, I guess in their heritage, and like when you were like, yo, I'm gonna be a rapper, and like what was kind of like their point of reference for that?
Their point of reference, I don't think they have a reference. I don't think they really knew. Like for me, I kept it mostly to myself. Like my parents growing up, they were lovers of music, and I think I got my love of music. I think some of that is innate, and some of it is you get as you grow up in the household. But they played other music, like they played a lot of Nat King Cole, they played Simon and Garfunkel, they played classical music, like 80s, 90s pop music even. And so I got a good random splattering of music from them. But in terms of rap, I think the only rapper my dad probably knew was like Tupac.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny now that you say that is they didn't really have a reference of hip hop and rap. But the other day, like I was at home visiting my parents and I heard like 21 being played in my
Oh
kitchen.
yeah.
I was like, who's playing this music? And I walked downstairs and my dad has a lot by 21 like blasting on his laptop while he's cooking. I'm like, damn, dad, what? So I was asking and he's saying because he listens to my music sometimes in the recommended, you
Other stuff
know.
will pop up. Yeah.
So he'll listen to hip hop now because he's curious of like he's still kind of building that sense of like what makes hip hop like what's the different types of hip hop, why
Yeah.
people like it, what makes it good. So he's kind of like delving into that now because of I guess my career path. But it's pretty fun.
I mean, that's dope. That's super dope to be like,
Yeah,
I'm introducing my dad to like 21 Savage and shit like that.
yeah. It was fun.
So, I guess like in terms of like you Chinese and Asians rap, like, is there anybody that like came before that you like looked at and seen how they kind of did it? Obviously, like early 2000s, the only people that really came to my mind were like MC Jin and like I guess like China back and people like that.
Mm, the only one that came to mind when you said that was MC Jin, but he did it on a he did it on a. I remember listening to him back then just because as a kid, like it wasn't necessarily that I don't know. It's just I guess you're still kind of figuring out your identity, and as a kid who just had a love for rap and hip hop, I wanted to be able to look at someone and feel like I looked like them and I could do the
Yeah.
same thing. I remember when I first saw Pharrell on in the Driving Like It's Hot video. I thought he was like mixed or something. Like I thought he was mixed or something. Like he had. So I was like desperately looking for someone who would like look like me or I could relate to. So Jin was like the only one that I really knew. But for me right now, like I think I'm in a different place in my life now where, yeah, who I am is who I am. And I'm very proud of that. I don't try to play that card or make that in any way a kind of point of like branding for me. Hey, everyone look at Chinese in this or Asian American in this type of industry. I think beautiful music is beautiful music. And if you do it with an earnest sense of passion and trying to give back to the craft and do it with an earnest sense of passion, I think that should be enough. I don't want people to listen to me because I look a certain way or find me interesting because I look a certain way. I think I'm just trying to make the best music possible. And I want people to hear the music first and say, I fuck with this. And then later on, maybe if they see what I look like, they're like, oh, that's interesting. But it should be off the merit of the music only. I try not to, highlight the other stuff.
I mean, but also like in Asia, there's like a really big growing love of like hip hop culture and whatnot. So like, have you ever like considered like, tapping into that side of the market ever?
To be honest with you, no. I'm very proud of my heritage, and I was raised in a very traditional family, and that will always be a big side of me. So I don't reject it, but I think it hasn't been a conscious strategy to really tap into that market and really, because I think it would be easier for me, if I'm being honest with you, in the beginning, because obviously someone who looks like me, but kind of has that crossover sound.
Appeal.
Like,
yeah.
I get that. But for me, I'm trying to be the biggest artist in the world, period, not the biggest artist in East Asia. And I think what happens if me, just my personal feeling, if I really double down on that, you can blow up in Asia, but then it's hard for kids in Iowa or New York or Chicago or the Bay Area to really like relate to you.
Yeah.
Versus if I dominate and capture the United States, I'm gonna be popping there anyway. So it's kind of like the Jeremy Lin effect. If Jeremy Lin was dropping 40 on the Guangdong Tigers, no one in the NBA would care. But if Jeremy Lin was killing it in the New York Knicks, everyone in China knows his name. So I think for me, it's just like, I care about being the biggest artist in the world, not necessarily finding the easiest, fastest path to being big somewhere, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely makes sense. And I guess kind of like speaking about like your career and like how you kind of first blew up, like a lot of that had to do with like your use of social media and obviously like TikTok and going viral. And like, how did you kind of figure out that part of like the music scene? Because that's so important these days, regardless of how you feel about it, like having that ability to like have that reach on social media platforms.
Like figuring out how to distribute and market my music online.
Yeah.
I think it's just learning it on the job. Like for me, the music can be good, but if you have no ears to hear it, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, to a sense, I think great music, if you build it, they will come type of thing. Like it might take longer, but you'll definitely get there. I think for me, what helped me was, to be honest, just the reps. I think most people get it in their head. It's like, what's the best way to make content? How do I portray myself? Where should we film this? Like, what's the filter that we put on it? What caption should I use? It's like all that shit is, my approach was post 3 to 4 times a day and post 500 videos. And I think most of those questions will be self-resolving problems. And it was like, for me, the first 50 videos probably didn't do much. And then you hit one and you're like, okay, what made this work? Was it the length? Was it the visual appeal? Was it the contrast? Was it partially because of the text that I wrote on screen? So I think me figuring it out was just trying a bunch of different things and trying not to worry about anything else, but I'm going to post 3 to 4 times a day and I'm going to try my best to make the most interesting content. And I think because I combined the volume with the fact that I didn't hire someone to do it for me. Like I write these songs, I see it from beginning to end. So the music is, I'm so connected with the music that I feel like I'm really in touch with why the music resonates with people, because it's at the very, in the very beginning, it came from what resonated with me.
Yeah.
So it helped me make good content, and then I could just reiterate on that until something works. And then I think over time, I just learned what works for me.
Okay. So like, what is your creative process when it comes to like creating a song or creating like music in general?
I don't really have, I'm a big like flow type of person. And so for me, creative process it could come a lot of different ways. Sometimes I start with the instrument. Sometimes I start with a beat that was sent to me and I just sing the melody. Sometimes I start with one line that inspires. It's kind of like a thesis in a sentence that inspires a concept of the entire song. I flesh it out. Like the only thing I try to focus on is it's like you're surfing and you're trying to catch a wave. I don't worry about how to get on the wave. I just worry about being out in the water. Because if you're on the shore just looking at, wow, there's so many great waves I could be surfing, you're never going to catch a wave if you're not putting yourself in the position to do so. And so for me, it's just important to have creativity through consistency and action. So it's like just be in the studio every day, whether you're listening to beats, making beats, writing music, writing lyrics, and then the rest of it kind of takes care of itself. So that's really my process. Just get in the studio, just figure it out.
Okay. Makes sense. I mean, I guess also like, how would you kind of describe your sound? Because you do hip hop and rap, but you also blend all these different like elements and genres. And, you know, some people might kind of like poppy, but you also have like some melody and you have some singing songs and you have a good mix of everything. So how would you like personally kind of describe your sound to somebody who's like being introduced to you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of just a hodgepodge of everything that I like. Like I said, I'm a big melody guy. I think, I mean, if you were to just basically describe it, I would say it's probably something close to like pop/rap. Because there's sometimes some songs that I just bars and just pure hip hop. And there's some songs that are like only singing. And the ones that I think I like the most are the ones where it has melody in the hook. And then maybe I'll get off some bars in the verses. So I would say pop, rap pop. But in the most case, I don't typically worry about genre. I hear something, and if I feel inspired, I write lyrics and I think about melodies, and it kind of just comes out sounding how it sounds. I never say like, oh, I gotta make a, like a 64 bar, like chew your face off type of record, or like I do some chill, like driving music. It's just kind of whatever I feel. So
how would you like, what do you think about like the current like state of hip hop and it, the way it is now? Because I do see like a lot of other artists, especially like people maybe you wouldn't expect, like kind of tapping into all these other different genres. For example, like Lil Uzi Vert's like last project just came out, like he's touching in all these different sounds. So like what do you think about like, the current state of rap as it is today?
I mean, as a fan, I think just music in general will always continue to evolve. And so you can't expect it to be the same that it was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I think it's in a good place. I mean, there's always going to be good music and bad music, but I think in any era that you look, you're always going to get those too. But I think the best music and the best musicians from any stylistic, arena or area can stand in any time period. And I think the way that things are kind of like melding together nowadays is probably because the generation of musicians, like my generation of people, we grew up listening to like a lot more varied music probably than people who came before us, only by the merit of like the internet and
accessibility.
Accessibility. So I think just the input is so much more varied that obviously you're going to expect the output to take on some form of representing that. And so I think it's cool. I think it's cool hearing people put their own twist on things and like blending genres. I'm also a purist too. So I like people like Griselda and like Benny the Butcher, like people who just really concentrate on one thing and kill it in that. And I like people who bend genres as well. So I think it's an exciting time for artists.
Who handles your production? Like who puts all everything together? Where do you get your beats from? Like
it really depends. I mean, in the beginning I didn't really know anyone. In all of my songs, I always co-produce all of my songs. So I have a hand in everything. There's a few producers that I work with now that I think our sounds mesh really well. So it's really kind of a mix. To me, it doesn't matter where I get it from, as long as I feel inspired by it and I think it sounds really good. I'll use it. So.
Okay. I mean, you said you grew up in the Bay Area, correct?
No.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard your sound, like, it was like you definitely had like kind of like a Bay Area kind of bounce to it and kind of feel to it. Like, is that something that just naturally comes from just growing up in that environment, or is that something like you think about, like, this is what I want to kind of like tap into?
Yeah, I don't think about it really. I think in music or in any form of the arts, like if you start intellectualizing it, that's when you lose the magic, you know? So I think for me, whatever it sounds like is just what I like. And
Yeah.
what I like is probably just shaped by what I listened to and where I grew up. If you were to tell me, like when you said that, I'm like, oh, interesting. I couldn't really tell you where in my songs the Bay Area kind of influence actually sonically is, but I think that's cool for me to hear because I did grow up there and I listened to a lot of Bay Area music growing up. But yeah, I don't think about it. I guess it just
Yeah.
comes out. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, obviously you've had some huge breakthrough moments and singles, and like I want to speak about like Eurostep. Like Eurostep was a really big moment for you in your career. Like that's the one that kind of like I guess made you viral, and this one that I didn't even know you made it, but then when like it came to us in like our inbox, it's like, oh, I've heard this song for sure, like somewhere along the way. I don't even remember exactly where I heard it, but I heard it, and that's kind of crazy how like with the virality of like songs these days. So like,
Yeah.
kind of could speak about that moment and like how that came about.
Yeah, I mean, Eurostep was definitely a cool moment for me. It's well, I mean, I had written the song. What happened was I wrote the hook and then I posted a TikTok, like some dumb, like 5 second TikTok of me just like banging my head to the beat because I was just like, this is so hard type of thing. And I put it on TikTok, and then the next morning I had like 3 million views on the video.
Crazy.
So it wasn't even like it was exciting, but it was more like stressful because it's not like I could have converted. None of those views converted to actual streams because the song wasn't out. So
Yeah.
I saw it and I was like, shit, well, I only have a hook, so I got to finish the song and then like kind of piece it so you can actually listen to it. Otherwise, it's just untapped like interest, which is
Yeah.
just nebulous and it doesn't help me. So I ended up finishing it in like a day and I released it. And it actually, I mean, for how viral the song went, it didn't go that crazy for the first like 4 months. It was just, it did well. It was just kind of cruising along, um, which is kind of like how my songs usually do. I post them and then kind of build over time. I'm never the type of guy who like needs some crazy first week. I don't care about that stuff. But what ended up happening was Man U and Premier League soccer posted it. And I don't know anything about soccer, so I didn't really give a
But
shit.
those are two obviously massive
Yeah,
clubs, you know. Yeah.
right. I mean, but I was kind of ignorant to that stuff. And so I think fans were like tagging me and stuff, like European fans and stuff. So I would be like, oh, this is really cool. And then I think that's what started the snowball effect with the UGC, and then it just started going crazy. Like it wasn't until like people that I had looked up to when I was kids were like posting the songs. That was like a cool thing. So I think all in
Yeah.
all, it was a great experience. I'm very thankful for it. Uh, I would be lying if I told you that I didn't see that coming. Maybe not for Eurostep, but I think for sure, ever since I started this, I knew that, I mean, sooner or later, this was going to happen. Like it was always been my plan for this to happen. And that's why at the same time, I'm grateful for it, but I'm not, you know, the quicker things come, the quicker they go. And it's just a moment, you know, like Lil Baby was talking about people who have hit songs. Like it's just one record, right? Like,
Yeah.
so for me, I'm going to be here forever. So I'm very thankful for it, but I'm careful to not get super high on it because it's just, you have to follow it up and you're going to have to keep. So now I'm going to have, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more Eurostep moments, and they're going to be bigger than this one. So I think I'm thankful for this one. It was a great experience. I love that it happened the way that it did. But now I'm looking forward to the next one.
Isn't that crazy though? Like the way kind of these viral moments kind of happen, because I've spoken to like a lot of artists who've had like, you know, big singles and big moments, and like all of them speak about how like they had like a demo or a rough like whatever, and they put it out, and then that became like their most viewed or most watched moment, and like then like, oh shit, now I gotta like put together an actual song for this one. Like it's kind of wild how that happens sometimes, especially nowadays, where it's like the smallest thing you put out can like lead to like this huge wave of momentum.
Yeah, it's always organic too, and the beautiful thing is you never really know which one is gonna go. Like for
Yeah.
me, the year that I put out when I put out Eurostep, before that I put out a song called Better Alone. It's like a pop song. And I was so sure that that was the one that was gonna blow me up. I was like, I don't ever need to write a song again in my life. Like my engineer was saying that, my whole family, like all my friends were like, this is the best song. And it did okay, but it didn't go crazy. And then Eurostep went insane. And I didn't see it. I liked Eurostep, but I didn't see it doing this, like to be honest with you. So it's never really what you think it is. And it's, one little 2, 3, 4 second clip could change your entire career, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. Definitely wild. I mean, you follow that up, 2 more singles, Burn the Boats, Checks you just put out the lyric video for, I believe, last week. So can you kind of speak to those singles and like following up Eurostep and like what's the plans, going forward with that?
Yeah. Burn the Boats and Checks are both, I mean, Burn the Boats I released earlier this year. That was just a really honest record about kind of my philosophy on how you should approach anything in your life. Like the saying "burn the boats" comes down to us from some of the greatest. Like I'm a history nerd. It's like comes down from some of the greatest generals and conquerors in history, where they would just like set fire to their entire fleet as a way to demonstrate to their army, to their soldiers, that there's no option B, there's no plan B. We're not turning back, right? You either it's about moving forward and being willing to sacrifice anything for your goal, whether it means dying or dealing with anything, but except we can't go back. And so that was one that I really liked, and that's one that's like I told you, kind of the singing on the hook, but bars on the verses. Checks I recently came out with, and I don't know. It's just all of my songs are kind of these little standalone tidbits of like how I feel at the time. So it's just an honest record of like achieving success through hard work, consistency, dedication, not giving a fuck what anyone says or thinks, being unapologetically you, and just like my mindset of where I'm at and what's to come. And yeah, I like it because I think the instrumental is it's catchy, and the low end really knocks, but I hopefully people get a little bit of that, like, wow, there's that, not pop, but like popular, like rap music, where it's like anyone can vibe to this.
Yeah.
And you don't want to think about it. You could listen to it and just turn up. But if you really, like examine and listen to it, there's messaging there for people that has substance, and hopefully people can take that from the song.
I mean, the video also kind of pulled from like Colors videos. I don't know if you watch any of those. Like, is that kind of was inspiration for what you were doing for? And would you love to like be on one of those videos? Yeah,
I'd love to be on Colors. I will for sure.
Write that down. Let's manifest that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll come eventually. But I think for me, I mean, I'd seen some of those videos like in the YouTube thumbnails and stuff. For us, honestly, the video wasn't supposed to be a video. What that was a shoot with me and my videographer. We went to a set to shoot a bunch of short form content for TikTok and Reels.
Okay.
And so what it was meant to be was just kind of like a visually beautiful background where we could just change the colors and do like a bunch of takes for all of my songs. And so we maybe did like three continuous takes for like 7 or 8 or 9 different songs, just like going back to back to back. And we ended up doing Checks. And it was just a real natural thing while we were shooting. I was like, oh, I got a new song. I'm super excited. Just like did the whole take. And then if you see in the beginning of the video, that's just like genuine reaction of like, oh, he had never heard it before. He was like, run that shit back. So we did it again in one take. And then we ended up going home and looking at it and being like, this is really good. And so we edited it. I had this idea of getting the frame painting and the lyrics and stuff. So it ended up turning into a video, but it was just something where we were having fun. So
okay, yeah, it was dope. It was super dope. I guess I'm kind of touch on like speaking about lyricism and bars. Like, That's such a huge, well, maybe a little bit less these days, but it was such a huge part of like being a hip hop artist and a rapper is like your ability to spit and bars and like having lyricism. Like, so how did you kind of develop your, your rapping style, being able to rap, being able to put out bars? Like, how did you develop that as an artist?
I think it's just like who I listened to as a kid. Also, it's like what you gravitate towards in music, right? Some people just care about melody and some people just care about like beats. I've always loved writing and like taking pride in my pen. And I'm not one of those guys that could just go in the studio and not write anything down.
Yeah.
I treat a song as if you were constructing and writing like a paper or something, right? It's like I put a lot of thought into the syllables and the double entendres and like the way that it rhymes and schematics in the middle of the bar and things like that. And so I think it's just the combination of who I listen to and what catches my ear when I listen to music is I like to hear substance and bars. And I think what's one of the most beautiful things about hip hop is if you have a song like that, there's songs that I've heard my entire life and like the 20th time I hear it, I'm like, oh, I didn't notice
something
that.
else. Yeah.
I think that's the cool part and gives longevity to these types of songs. So I think listening to artists and there, by the way, there's artists like, like J. Cole, for example, where he's a prime example of someone who really like takes pride in his pen. But then there's also artists, crazy artists like Twista or Tech-9 that just like some of Tech-9's songs, like if you really delve into it, it's not necessarily like every word has a meaning, but it's the art of like lining up syllables and rapping super fast.
Flow, the cadence, yeah.
Flow and cadence, yeah, exactly. And so I think it's just like if you really love hip hop, you run across a lot of these artists who kind of are really, really good at certain types of writing. And I don't know, I guess it comes out in a way that I like to do it. It's kind of like my personal style.
You grew up in doing like high school ciphers and stuff like that?
Oh, what, like freestyling in the
lunchroom, everybody circled up, rapping, putting out bars or back of the party. Like everybody's like, yo, let me get on here.
Yeah, in school, for sure. In school, yeah, definitely. But I kind of like, that's just for fun. Like for me, I'm the type of artist where like, I'll never be like a freestyle artist. I don't claim to be the best. Like there's people who just kill at that.
That's what they do, yeah. It's almost like a whole other art form of rap,
Yeah, it is for sure. It's completely different than from what I do. So for me, like, I'm the guy who like needs to like light a candle and like I really like pour over these lines, So that's what I love about music is the part of writing, and I think that's one of my biggest strengths is writing. So yeah, I can't claim that I'm like one of those guys, for sure, for fun, but I'm not like that when it comes to freestyling.
I mean, high school, we definitely had the kids that are like they go home, pre-write everything, get it up. The next cipher comes along, like, yo, I got some fire for y'all. Like knowing it's a fully pre-written, that like we know that's a pre-written, but you've been working on that some nights, like, yo, I got something for this circle, like next time. So that's definitely also part of like that culture, and kids used to do that. That was like my favorite time growing up and rapping hip hop when kids were like loving to do that.
Yeah, I mean, when you see me on like Sway and these shows, and stuff, for sure it's going to be pre-written. So I'm not try to front and say it came off the top, but I'm definitely going to write my shit. So
I mean, you wouldn't be alone. There's very few, honestly, like as many people lie, there's very few people that can actually just go off the top like that.
Crazy.
Okay, so I mean, you've had a lot of singles. You've been putting out a lot of music over the last, few years. Like, what's your thoughts on like singles versus albums and playlists and all that?
I think albums are important. I think albums, I think you need to earn the right to release an album. And I think albums are there to give back to your fan base and to give them a cohesive piece of work that they can kind of listen to and enjoy. But I think if you're an artist in the beginning and you're trying to grow, releasing an album is just, from a business and from a distribution point of view, is just like not very smart. I get the whole like, oh, I'm a purist, I need to like put the art first, but yeah, just like release the songs one at a time and make your make your music work harder for you. Because I think if you don't have the audience and you release an album, it's just going to fall on deaf ears, and you're going to waste all of that time and money and energy into just one release date. And nowadays, if you're not consistently like in people's faces, they forget about you super quick. And so if you're in kind of your growth stage, I don't think it's the smartest thing to release albums until you can command or earn the right to release that album to your fan base. And so for me, in the last 3 years, it's really been about making good music, but releasing in a way that's smart. So for me, it's just, I would, instead of releasing 16 songs in one, I'd rather release
one by one. Yeah,
one song at a time. And I think that's like, at this point, everyone knows that, you know, it would be kind of stupid to not do that. I respect the album thing, but so for me, I think it will come soon. Maybe like next year, I'll probably release an album. I'd like to get a little bit bigger before I do that. And then maybe like go on a tour, my first tour, and then release an album and then go tour. So.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask. I was like, what's the future hold for you? You going to do like tour shows, you know, planning on hopping on any guest features coming up? Like what do people got to look forward to West this year?
Yeah, I mean, what people can look forward to is always good music, purity of intention when I release my music, that it's always going to be something that I'm never going to release something that I don't think is good. And so I think what people can expect is more of the same, but on a bigger and better level consistently. It's just going to get bigger. Like for me, yeah, tour is like starting to get to a point where we have to start thinking about playing shows. I didn't want to be that guy who would go on tour just to get in front of people, to open for someone at the end and be like, oh, by the way, I go by the name of Wes. This is my Instagram. Yeah. There's just better ways to market. You can post to TikTok and get 1 million people to come to your page. So for me, like an album, I think you earn your right to tour. Once you have the gravity to headline your own shows at a Roxy or Wiltern in LA, then you go do that. And so I think that time is coming up soon for us. We might start with like a 3 to 5 city, like a small tour, maybe like a 5 city. And then we go from there. But again, I think touring for me, when I do it, you can be rest assured that my motivation will not be for the money. It's not going to be because I care about the marketing, because those things are taken care of and will be taken care of by, better ways. And so when I go on tour, it's purely for the enjoyment of the music, to meet my fans in person, to give back to them for giving me a career in the thing that I love doing. And so I don't want to tour until I can do that. And so I don't want to lose the intention of what it's supposed to be, which is it's for the fans. It's not for you to make money or for you to market to people in front of people. So, yeah.
Have you played? Have you done many shows so far?
For my own original music, never. Yeah. Never done my own show. I mean, like growing up, I've been in front of crowds, sang, performed, done all that stuff. So I'm super comfortable with that. But I made a promise to myself when I started that I wouldn't play a show until I could headline my own venue. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, hopefully that's soon. Like, I mean, obviously everything we talked about, like, it sounds like you got everything kind of not figured out, but you're figuring it out, and things are definitely moving in the right direction for you. And I think that a lot of the music that you're putting out is great. And I definitely see why people are like kind of gravitating towards you as a musician, as an artist. And I think you got a bright future.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I think I just try to treat it with respect and do it in a genuine way, because it's what I love. It's my passion. Like we talked about touring, I think a lot of artists do things out of necessity because they either they don't make money off of their music. They don't own the masters, so they don't collect money off of their music. They can't live off of it. So they have to go on tour to play shows, and it kind of dilutes the intention. So for me, it's just, I set it up to where I think I'm independent, so I can do what I want, and I want to do things for the right reason when the timing is right. And it's important for me to have ownership, so I have the leverage to where I don't need anyone's money. I don't need anyone's resources. I could just do what I feel like is right. And I think that's the most important thing. But I appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for taking time out and talk to us. And you know, if you guys are watching, wherever you guys listen to this, definitely go follow him on the socials and wherever we put down in the links below, and run those streams up.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.